Name Bill, age now 86. Right. London address is slightly variable for the simple reason we were bombed out. And original address, which I've got from my birth when I was born, was 51 Pellerin Road. But in fact, it's possible that I was living in Barrett's Grove at the time because we had to move. Between that time, I don't know whether I was in Pellerin Road when I was born, or whether I was in Barrett's Grove, between the two, because we were bombed out. So the London address is either Pellerin Road, which is in Stoke Newington, not far from Dalston, and the other one, Barrett's Grove, was only 300 yards away, again near Dalston Junction in the East End. Okay, the age I was evacuated. The reason, first of all, for being evacuated was my mother was expecting, who happened to be my daughter and my sister, in 1941, and at that time London was under a little bit of aggro. So my mother was evacuated to Luton. Doesn't seem very far from London now, but it was in those days. And during that period, just before, just around, just after, I couldn't tell you the exact date, I was then evacuated around the age of 3 to South Wales.
Right. Whereabouts in South Wales?
Sorry?
Whereabouts in South
Wales?
Pass. Oh. Okay.
All I know, in South Wales, with a deep coal pit just at the back of the hovel we were living in. Okay. I do remember vaguely being collected off a railway station at the other end. Vague memories. To say it was precise would be wrong. Vague. And I was taken by this family, funny enough, Jones. True. And they had a daughter that was 2 years older than I was, named, funny enough, Mavis. And during that period, I wouldn't say I was unhappy, because you make your own way. Even at that young age, people meet adversity. But I was deprived in the sense that I never seemed to get any reasonable need clothes, or the coupons that were given with me, the D's and the E's of the coupons, seemed to go to the daughter, who was a bit older than me. And I wouldn't say I was going about in rags, but they were tending to be a bit hand-me-down.
Could you tell me a bit more about these coupons?
Well, of course, during that period, you know, the ration books, there were the basic ones were D's and E's, which were basically, I think, for clothes and food. Right. And so allowance for food, allowance for clothes, the coupons were cut off for it in all ration books.
Okay. How did you get those?
They must have been put in with this must have put within the
when you were
gas mask.
When you were evacuated, right?
Yeah, with my gas mask.
So you had a gas mask.
I think I've actually got a ration book upstairs.
Oh, right. Okay.
I think I have. Do you want to see it?
No. Not just yet.
Obviously, at that age, I'm not going to be very clear on detail and all the rest of it.
No.
But what I do know is that during that period, I don't remember clearly going to school. I don't remember that, and when I came back from Wales, I was speaking in a form of Welsh language, which my parents and my sister couldn't understand for a short period. That's how it goes.
You do pick up.
Yeah, so it was obviously it was a time of deprivation, but it was for everybody. And the thing about that is that you didn't feel deprived like they might do today, because there was nothing different. There was no such thing as television. Radio was a bit sparse. You only interconnected with your very local areas. You didn't know what somebody was doing 40 miles or 400 or 4,000 miles away. So it was a bit communalised, like communities in that sense, but it was very restrictive. And unfortunately, I came back to London as far as I can remember, in 1945.
Okay.
End of 44, beginning of 45. And that was the first time I met my family. Because I obviously didn't remember my father before that, because he was in the forces, and I've got some information there. So he was in the forces. Obviously, I hadn't seen my sister. I didn't see my sister till she was, what, 4 years old. And then, of course, all the trauma starts in a way that you don't quite realise. That in coming back at that age, I was 6.5, 7 years of age, no schooling. So when I finally went to school, funny enough, it was Princess May Road School, which was actually the top of our road. I was very much behind with everything, very much behind. And it took me a long time to actually catch up. When it comes to what you got or what you didn't get when you evacuated, I don't remember, although there must have been some, I don't remember genuinely joyful moments. And I certainly don't remember receiving gifts or no contact with my mother or my father at all during that period.
This was when you were in Wales?
In Wales.
Yeah.
My mother obviously couldn't come to see me. The war was on. My father was in the forces.
What did he do?
Funny enough, pre-forces, he was in the fire service before that as well. But so we didn't come to as a family until ages were pretty well settled, and consequently, it didn't make our family very close afterwards.
No.
My parents are taking a bit of a romantic thing. I'm sure they love me, inverted commas, because they were never cruel to me.
No.
But we were never close.
No.
There was no bonding. For instance, I actually played football at a very good level for Hackney schoolboys, and I played cricket for Hackney schoolboys. And my father never ever came to watch any football matches. He never came to watch anything. On his side, to be fair, he was a plumber. He worked very, very hard, and things weren't easy, obviously. But as I got older, I would have thought we might have connected a bit more, but we didn't. We weren't. There was no animosity.
I didn't.
But we didn't connect. I didn't connect with my mother. I didn't not love my mother, but it was like a stranger.
That bond had been broken.
It didn't. It actually didn't exist. And to make it worse, my sister was very, very much favoured, because I was a vagabond coming back from South Wales. But I've got to repeat and reiterate, this is what it was like at the time. And it was the same for everybody. And it was no worse for me than it was for anybody else. You just didn't have broader horizons because you didn't know what was out there. Like today, somebody could tell you what's happening in the back streets of Russia. But in our area, you couldn't tell what was happening an area away. I lived it was in the East End when I finally came back. And I had to make reconnections or make connections with a new type of society, really, because effectively, from the age of 6.5, 7, I can't be exact about that, it was starting a new life. So, but I would go on and say that I wasn't ill-treated by anybody. I would make that point. And the funny thing about it was I never felt lonely. It was rather interesting that I made my own way, if you like.
You probably became more independent, didn't you?
Val says to me, that's what made you what you are, because I'm what I call a conservative socialist cynic. And I can define all those three. Everybody lets you down on the phone now, they never ring you back. The socialists try to do good things, and the Conservatives cock it up. So, it did affect my life. I've got to say that, Val. We know it affected my life, and there are certain little flashbacks you get from time to time. You can't even put a space or a date to it, but there were certain little things. I do remember playing on the coal tips That I do remember, because the coal tips and the coal in Southwell was virtually on your back
door.
Virtually on your back door. And that the place that we lived in, again, it's the same for everybody, so I can't complain. They were not much better than hovels. You know, they really were. And again, think of everything with coal fires down there, in an enclosed area. So that was it. So really, I don't feel bad about it. I don't feel difficult about it. I don't feel I'm deprived. I don't feel as if I've actually lost anything, because I've not actually had it, if you can understand that. Yeah. I'm pretty certain, I obviously, I can't be precise at that age, but I certainly didn't feel part of the family. Let me put it that way. It wasn't, yes, come on, young Billy or Bill or what you are. Come on, this is Mavis, who is our eldest daughter. Perhaps you can get on and all the rest. It wasn't like that. It was separate.
Yeah.
And my feeling was, whilst they weren't cruel, and I've got to make that point because it is important, I don't think they cared very much. And there is a difference. There is a difference. You know, not there's your dinner. There's your dinner. Yeah. And it's an inference on a sentence. But as I've said before, it was the same for everybody. I mean, I can remember being on the station with hundreds and hundreds of kids around me. Wow. I can remember that. Yeah. I was about knee high to a grasshopper with a big box.
So how many years were you with?
Well, again, if we take the time gap of between just under 2 or just under 3 or just over 3, you know, it couldn't have been exactly on that date. It would have been around that date. Yeah. And I came back, as I remember, in 45.
Right.
But of course, everything was on then. The war was on. Again, it's interesting. It's not part of your survey, but when I joined the Sea Scouts, and we used to go away and trekking weekends, I used to have to come back from Dalston Junction to where I lived in Barrett's Grove, past a place called Ridley Market. You may or not. Ridley Market was where Mosley and all his black shirts persecuted the Jews in the big market. And I actually, without a lie, I actually saw them throwing the marbles under the horses, and I saw somebody stabbed. And I wasn't on my own with the scout leader. They were leading us back the wall because it was the east end of London, and the east end of London was what it was. Yeah. Yeah. But you know, so it was not deprived. I've got to repeat that. Not deprived, but sort of made you self-reliant.
Interesting.
It made you self-reliant. You knew you couldn't rely on. Yeah, I think your story is probably very similar for nearly everybody. Yes. I would think. Yes. Some people had a fantastic time. Some people got into the middle of the country. They were lucky enough to be with people who had money, or they had plenty of land around them. And you'll find certain people or certain children that had a wonderful, especially they'd have been a bit older as well. If you take them in that age of perhaps 7 or 8 or 9, could have been wonderful moving to the country. And, you know, and a lot of people actually went back to those places.
Yes.
But not the ones, I don't think, too much that went to the industrial centres. And South Wales was
an
industrial centre.
Basically.
Yeah. As I say, I met my father, as remembering him, in 1945, so I would have been 7. That was the first time. Now, it's a bit difficult to. It's gone. You know what the saying is: take a man to the age of 7, take a boy to the age of 7, and he will give you the man. And I think that's pretty true actually. But so we weren't close as a family. If you asked of what an effect was, we weren't close.
You were independent.
Very independent. Very independent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you? Sorry.
No, it's okay.
While you were away as a child,
yeah.
Did you get? I'm not sure whether you said, but did you get anything for Christmas morning?
No. Yes, I did. I was saying, and it was the traditional. It was the maximum of an orange and some walnuts in a
Right.
in an ordinary sock. Well, that was it because they didn't do all
Yeah.
those things then anyway.
Yeah.
But you thought it was the end of the world.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying, that people, because in those days, as it was, even like 48, 49, there was nothing to actually stretch for, because that's what it was, you know.
The reason
Parochial, if I now can say that living was parochial,
Mhm.
that makes a fair statement.
Mm.
You didn't go outside your area very much, did you?
No.
I mean, it might be different up here. And when you were younger, you know, it changed dramatically. Are you able to photograph and enhance that for me? I want to know what regiment. I've tried everything to try and find out which regiment he was in and everything.
Oh.
Haven't got it. I just wondered whether it was possible for you to photograph that.
Yeah.
And enhance it, not just perhaps make it bigger. Could you just try that for me?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll have to do it where there's a bit more light.
Yeah, okay.
Over there.
And now there's that's my dad's as well.
Right.
That's my dad's. These are my Uncle Harry's, who I never met because he was killed at Ypres and that is my father's. You've probably seen these. That's my father's soldier's Bible. Have you ever seen one of those? They are.
No, I've never seen.
1939.
Wow.
That's a soldier's Bible.
Yeah.
Told to wear it on the chest, as you can imagine, for the thing. So that, you know, and those are my Uncle Harry's.
Yeah.
And that is actually called, if you learn something, that is actually called a death medal.
Yeah.
When they go, and there's.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna see if I can put that there.
My great grandfather came from Russia. My grandfather came from Prussia.
Right.
And my great grandfather and my grandfather came from Austria.
Wow.
So they're all living in that part of the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they came over. They came over to here. You know, so it's amazing how people. I've had our history traced back to the 1800s.
Wow.
And I've got all the family connections and where they all are, and all the skeletons in the carrots. You'd be surprised how many weren't actually married and all the rest of it. You know, they were.
I know.
That's quite interesting.